In a stunning development that has once again shaken the global stage, Russian President Vladimir Putin has reportedly made a new and bold demand to end the Ukraine war. According to multiple credible sources, Putin is now insisting that Ukraine must hand over the entire Donetsk region as a condition for peace. In return, Russia claims it would halt its ongoing military operations and agree to a ceasefire. This proposal, however, has sent shockwaves through Kyiv and Western capitals, where officials see it not as a peace offer, but as an ultimatum that could permanently redraw the map of Eastern Europe. This new twist in the war comes at a time when both sides are exhausted, but far from giving up. The fighting across the Eastern Front remains intense, with artillery duels and drone attacks continuing daily. Yet amid the chaos, the Kremlin's latest demand stands out for its directness: full control of Donetsk in exchange for stopping the war. For months, analysts have speculated about Russia's long-term goals in Ukraine. But this move seems to confirm what many already suspected. Moscow is not looking for compromise. It's looking for consolidation. To understand why Putin is focusing on Donetsk, we need to look at the region's importance. Donetsk lies in the industrial heartland of Ukraine, part of the larger Donbas area, which has been contested since 2014. It's rich in coal, industry, and symbolism. When Russia annexed Crimea a decade ago, Donetsk became the next flashpoint. Russian-backed separatists have controlled parts of it for years, while Ukrainian forces have fought relentlessly to defend what remains under their control. For Putin, taking Donetsk entirely would mean completing what he began, a symbolic and strategic victory that he could sell to the Russian public as justification for the immense cost of the war. But why now? Some analysts believe this demand is less about peace and more about timing. Russia's economy, under heavy sanctions, is struggling but stable. Ukraine's counteroffensives have slowed. Meanwhile, Western support, particularly from Europe and the US, has become increasingly uncertain. With political transitions happening in Washington and fatigue setting in among NATO allies, Putin might see this as the perfect moment to force a deal. His calculation is simple: demand territory when the world is tired of fighting and present it as a pathway to peace. Ukraine's response, however, has been immediate and firm. President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has rejected the idea outright, calling it both unconstitutional and immoral. "We will not surrender territory that belongs to Ukraine," he said in a recent press conference. For Kyiv, agreeing to hand over Donetsk would not just mean losing a region. It would mean validating Russia's invasion and opening the door to future demands. Ukraine's stance is clear. Any so-called peace that involves territorial loss is not peace at all. It's capitulation. In Washington, the situation is being watched closely. Reports suggest that former U.S. President Donald Trump, who has recently been involved in discussions about mediating an end to the conflict, was informed of the demand during private talks with Putin, while Trump has publicly said that the war should end quickly. He has not endorsed the Donetsk handover. Still, some observers fear that a deal under U.S. pressure could push Ukraine into an unfavorable position. For the Biden administration and American policymakers, this creates a complex dilemma: how to end a costly war without rewarding aggression. From Russia's perspective, the move appears to be a carefully crafted geopolitical play. By framing the demand as a peace offer, the Kremlin aims to shift the narrative, from being seen as the aggressor to appearing as the one offering compromise. "Give us Donetsk and the war ends" sounds deceptively reasonable on paper. But experts point out that Russia has made and broken similar promises before. In past ceasefires, Moscow used pauses to regroup, rearm, and resume offensives stronger than before. That's why Ukraine and many of its allies believe that even if Putin got Donetsk, the war wouldn't truly end. It would simply enter a new phase. The implications of this demand go far beyond the battlefield. If Ukraine were to give up Donetsk, it would set a dangerous precedent for international law and global stability. It would send a message that borders can be changed through force and that military aggression pays off if you hold out long enough. Western nations fear that such an outcome would embolden other authoritarian powers to use similar tactics. In essence, Donetsk has become more than a city or a region. It's a symbol of whether the international order built after World War II still holds any real authority. For Europe, the stakes are equally high. The continent has already felt the ripple effects of the war, through energy crises, refugee waves, and soaring defense budgets. A Russian victory in Donetsk could trigger further insecurity in Eastern Europe, particularly in countries like Poland, the Baltic states, and Moldova, which all fear they could be next. On the other hand, if Ukraine continues to resist and the war drags on, Europe faces prolonged instability, economic strain, and growing divisions within NATO. For the United States, this is about more than just Ukraine. It's about credibility. If Washington pressures Kyiv into accepting a territorial loss, America's commitment to defending democracy and sovereignty worldwide would be questioned. But if it continues to back Ukraine indefinitely, it risks being drawn into an unwinnable, open-ended conflict. Either way, the outcome will shape U.S. foreign policy for years to come. The situation is equally precarious for Ukraine's people. After more than 3 years of full-scale war, millions have been displaced, cities have been reduced to rubble, and thousands of lives have been lost. To them, the idea of giving up Donetsk is not just political, it's deeply personal. Many Ukrainians see it as giving away the graves of their soldiers and the future of their children. That's why, despite fatigue, morale in Ukraine remains defiant. If we give them Donetsk today, one Ukrainian official said, they'll ask for Kyiv tomorrow. So what happens next? There are 3 main possibilities. The first scenario is that Ukraine, under international pressure, agrees to negotiate. This could lead to a fragile ceasefire, one that stops the immediate bloodshed, but leaves unresolved tensions simmering beneath the surface. The second possibility is that Kyiv refuses outright, prompting Russia to escalate militarily, perhaps launching a renewed offensive to capture Donetsk by force. The third, more unpredictable scenario is that the war enters a frozen phase, similar to the Korean Peninsula, a long, uneasy standoff with no clear winner and no true peace. Whatever happens, one thing is clear. The demand for Donetsk is a defining moment. It's a test of resolve. For Ukraine, for its allies, and for the international community. How the world responds will determine not only the future of Eastern Europe, but also the credibility of global institutions built to prevent exactly this kind of aggression. For viewers watching from across the globe, this story is more than just another headline. It's about how power operates in the 21st century. It's about whether smaller nations can survive in a world dominated by larger ones. And it's about whether peace can ever be achieved through coercion. As one European diplomat put it, this isn't just Ukraine's war. It's a mirror reflecting what kind of world we're becoming. In the coming weeks, all eyes will be on Moscow, Kyiv, and Washington as this geopolitical chess game unfolds. Will Putin's gamble pay off, or will it backfire? Will Ukraine's defiance inspire stronger Western unity, or lead to greater division? Only time will tell. For now, Donetsk stands as both a battlefield and a bargaining chip, caught between 2 visions of the future, one built on sovereignty and law, and the other on power and force. The next few months could determine which vision prevails. If you found this breakdown insightful, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more in-depth coverage of global affairs. This is Viewpoint USA, where we decode the stories shaping our world. Stay informed, stay alert, and remember, geopolitics isn't just about leaders and borders, it's about the future we all share.